good news. Winter has finally arrived in Snowdonia. We've had good snow last night, it's snowing now, it was snowing yesterday, and the better thing is, although we had some good snow last week and there was a thaw, the temperatures have dropped. So that gives us something to play with. So finally, I'm making some plans to get out in the snow, and tonight I'm going to head over probably into Cwm Valley, get high up into one of the cwms and pitch my tent. So what I want to do is just talk through for you what is going in my pack and how I put it in my pack in the order in which I'm likely to take it out. And with that, I'm thinking about what's the first thing I'm going to need, what's the last thing I'm going to need, and also about emergencies as well. So just to show you how I plan, I've got all of this set out on the floor, lined up in the order that it's going to go into my bag. And to start with, I've got all my cooking stuff. Now that's the last thing I'm going to need tonight when I've finally got the tent set up, all the sleeping gear out, finally got settled, and then I'll start looking at cooking. So we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail in a bit. And then get into some of the sleeping kit. I've got a Gore-Tex bivy bag. Actually, you probably wouldn't need that in temperatures around -5, but a bit of luxury. Sleeping mat, and that's self-inflating. Sleeping bag, you need to pack that down as much as you can do to get it in your pack. And a tent as well. And what I always do is take out the poles and the pegs so you can actually pack down the tent with the canvas on its own and make that a lot smaller. A little bit of a luxury, a foam resting pad there. Might take that, might not. And then I'm going to have a dry bag with some of the clothes that I'll need throughout the day and throughout the night as well. And I'll cover those in a little bit more detail in a moment. And then finally, for the top lid of the rucksack, I'll be putting a few things in there that I need immediate access to. Head torches, actually 2. Good for lighting if I want to do some photography, but also if one fails, if I drop one, I've got a spare. Of course, map, compass, ice axe, crampons, and then my bag itself. Let's start off by looking at what I'm going to take for my food and how I'm going to cook it. I'm only going for tonight and tomorrow morning, so I only have to think about an evening meal. Really simple. Little packets of pasta in a tomato sauce. I'll take water with me in my backpack. Of course, if you camp near a stream, or you can even use snow, a little bit of water in your tin, drop snow in there, melt it down. Feels really adventurous, and that does the trick nicely. For the morning, all I'm going to need, a couple of sachets of coffee, my cup, and I love a little packet of porridge as well. Again, just enough water to boil down, leave it in the porridge, let that cook over. Brilliant. Great way to start the day. And I'll be cooking just on a micro stove like this. Make sure you take something to light it with. It's going to hook up to the gas. A little cigarette lighter to avoid matches that might actually get wet, although you can get waterproof matches. Your cooking tins, some utensils, and actually a couple of treats for tonight just before I go to sleep. Some nice chocolate, and it was my birthday yesterday and my friend Sam got me some little bottles of port. I think that'll be a lovely treat. Moving on then, after I've put my food and my cooking stuff down into the bottom of my pack, I'll be thinking about the things that I need last once I've got the tent set up, and that's my sleeping gear. So like I said earlier, just one extra, maybe a little bit of a luxury to be honest, a Gore-Tex bivy bag. Don't necessarily need that in temperatures around -5, which is maybe what we'll have tonight. But that is a nice little luxury to take. Doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's not particularly heavy. Then my sleeping bag. Take as much time as you can do to get that packed down as small as possible. This one is a Van Gogh Ultralight 900, great down to about -5. That's going to be lovely for tonight. And it does take up a little bit of space, probably the biggest thing that's going in my rucksack. My inflatable sleeping mat packs down really well. The important thing is not to lose the little cap off the valve, otherwise you can have an uncomfortable night because it won't stay inflated. Now once those go in, I can start thinking about the tent. Now in an emergency situation in the mountains, if the weather really turns, or if I have an accident, or if I come across somebody else who's had an accident, I've got an immediate emergency shelter. So I don't necessarily have to set up a tent with all the poles to deal with that situation, because you've got a decent canvas that you can get inside and just use it like an emergency shelter. That needs to go somewhere near the top. And as I said earlier, I actually take out the poles and the pegs, and then you can insert those probably last, and you could just put those down the side of your pack. The next thing to go into my backpack, which is going to go on top of the food stuff and the camping gear, is a dry bag with really essential dry and warm clothing in it. Probably the most important is an insulation jacket. Now this needs to be somewhere near the top of your backpack during the day in case you need it if the weather turns and you have to stop for any reason. But certainly it's one of the things you're going to go for once you stop and start getting your tent out and setting up your campsite. Then on top of that, warm gloves. I don't expect while I'm walking to need really warm gloves, but these are there just in case, and certainly I'll get those out when I'm setting up the tent. And these fantastic Gore-Tex mittens, I've shown you these before on my winter clothing video a couple of weeks ago. These are brilliant, especially if you're going to be moving snow around, either shoveling snow or even moving it with your hands. And then to sleep, I'll probably sleep in my thermal layer that I'll be wearing on my torso, just my walking top. That'll be comfortable. I'll keep the body heat that I've had from walking during the day. And then for my legs, I'll just take a fresh, dry thermal layer for my legs. And your feet are going to get a little bit damp when you walk, even in waterproof boots. So I'll always take off my day socks that I've been walking in and put something fresh and dry on. And that's a great way to get comfortable when you get in your sleeping bag. Then coming up to the top of the backpack, I've got this lid which is detachable, but this will be sitting up on top of the rucksack. That'll give me the stuff that I need to get hold of first before anything else. Really importantly, I've got my head torches, put those in there, my gloves that I'll be walking with, though I'll actually have a thin pair that I'll have just tucked into my jacket pockets. I've got first aid kit. I'm going to keep that up close to the top actually, and that can go on the inside of this lid, and some loo roll. Once that's all zipped up nicely, I can get that lid on the backpack, get my map tucked away inside, get my crampons in there, and then finally on the outside of the backpack, my ice axe. Okay, let's get everything packed. My backpack is very light, low alpine. It's from the Metanoia range, which is designed for alpine climbing. Essentially, it's one sack with no extra pockets on it. Lots of straps, which are useful for compression, but actually it also causes a problem in the wind because you can get whipped in the face. So just make sure you get those to the right length that you need them. I've got the food and cooking stuff in there. Next thing to go in is the Gore-Tex. I'm going to stick that down the side. And then I've got to think actually, do I need the rest of it to be protected and waterproof? And the next thing to go in is my sleeping bag. So I'm going to put a waterproof sack in there, put the sleeping bag down inside that. So that's not going to get wet if the weather turns nasty. And the real trick here is to start manoeuvring things in your backpack so you get a good shape, and when it's on your back you're not going to be uncomfortable. That's gone in there nicely, it's all slotting together. I'll go for my sleeping mat, put that down the far side. Tent can go in nicely, a little space for it. And then all of my dry gear going in over the top of that. Now this rucksack has got a capacity of 65 litres, but it's extendable as well, up to 80. And you want to kind of keep your backpack down to a reasonable size. So once everything's in, you can start manoeuvring it about, get the compression straps on, and you'll find that you can get everything packed down a little bit smaller. Finally, tent poles, they can actually go in on the outside if you want to be careful about not damaging them on rocks. Get it down the inside. Don't forget your pegs. Crampons can sit in the top section. The lid comes over and you have it all wrapped up nicely, and of course mounting your ice axe on the front, and on this pack it's got a really fantastic mounting system. It just sits in there neatly like that.